3 hours after the dinner, Daniel sat in his private room on the human diplomatic ship called Meridian. The ship floated in space around the Valorian home planet. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Amy Price, stood in front of his desk. She held her tablet computer tight in her hands. Her face showed horror and disbelief mixed together. "Sir, let me make sure I understand this right," Amy said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were wide. "The Valorian Empire declared war on all of humanity, and you asked about dessert?" "The timing of the dessert," Daniel corrected her. He leaned back in his chair and looked relaxed. "There's an important difference, and just so you know, the crystal cake was worth it. You should try the leftovers I brought back. They're in the cold storage." Amy pressed her fingers against her forehead. "Admiral Peters is going to lose his mind when he gets this report. But he'll be happy that I bought us an extra 6 hours before their fleet leaves." My answer confused them so much that DesHFY called an emergency meeting. "They're trying to figure out if humans have some kind of secret mental warfare ability." "Do we?" Amy asked. "Not officially," Daniel said with a small smile. "But they don't need to know that. Send the emergency message to Earth. Use full encryption. Make sure it reaches the Colonial Defense Force and the Diplomatic Corps at the same time. Tell them the Valorians are serious. They'll launch their attack fleet at 8 in the morning, their local time, tomorrow." Amy's fingers moved fast across her tablet. "That gives us about 37 hours before they reach our closest colony." 37 hours and some change, Daniel confirmed. "More than enough time." "Sir, the Valorians have 10,000 warships," Amy said. Her voice stayed professional, but worry came through. "Our intelligence says each ship is twice as big as our largest cruisers. They have weapons we've never seen before. They've destroyed civilizations that had way more military power than we do. How are we supposed to fight that?" Daniel stood up and walked to the big window. He looked down at the Valorian planet below. It glowed with lights from their cities. "Amy, how long have you worked in the diplomatic service?" 6 years, sir. "And you know the first rule of dealing with new alien species." He turned back to look at her. "Never let them see you're scared. Every species we've met in the past 100 years has made guesses about humans based on incomplete information. The Valorians think we're weak because we like talking more than fighting. They think we're not ready because we haven't built a huge military empire like theirs." "Aren't we unprepared, sir?" Amy asked quietly. "Lieutenant Commander, do you know what humanity's real military power is classified as?" "Most of it is above my security clearance, sir." "Exactly." Daniel went back to his desk and pulled up a file on his computer. "Send this with your message. Authorization code Cooper 7 Alpha Delta. It'll explain everything to Admiral Peters." Amy looked at her tablet as the file transferred to it. Her eyes got very wide as she read the file name. "Sir, this is labeled Contingency Prometheus Protocol." "It is. I thought Prometheus was just a story, something the military talked about to make people feel better." "A lot of things are stories until they're not," Daniel said. "Send the message, Amy. Then get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be very interesting." After Amy left, Daniel poured himself a drink from his private supply. It was real bourbon from Kentucky, not the fake stuff they made in factories. He raised the glass toward the window, toward the Valorian planet below. "To dessert," he said quietly. Then he drank. On Earth, deep under the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Richard Peters stood in the Command Operations Center. All around him, holographic displays showed every human colony, outpost, and military ship in known space. Next to him, General Linda Martinez of the Colonial Defense Force looked at the incoming message on her screen. "He asked about dessert," Linda said. She couldn't quite keep the disbelief out of her voice. "Cooper always had a unique way of doing diplomacy," Richard replied. "But his analysis is good. The Valorians are completely committed to this war. They'll launch in 36 hours. Then we have 36 hours to get ready. Linda made the tactical display bigger. It showed the path the Valorian fleet would probably take. They'll hit Colony 12 first. It's the closest to their space and our lightest defended settlement. From there, they'll move to Colonies 7 and 9. They'll try to catch our fleet in the wrong position. That's standard military thinking, Richard agreed, which means they haven't done their research on human military strategy. A younger officer named Commander Peter Grant walked up with a datapad. Sir, all fleet elements are responding to the recall order. We'll have 93% of our forces assembled at Rally Point Echo within 24 hours. Only 93%? Linda asked. The Clark is getting reactor maintenance at Station Gamma. Captain Hayes says she can be ready in 48 hours. Tell Captain Hayes she has 36 hours, Richard said, and give her my authorization to skip every safety protocol that won't cause immediate reactor failure. Peter's face showed surprise, but he nodded. Yes, sir. After the commander left, Linda pulled up a different display. This one showed ship classifications that officially didn't exist. Are we really doing this? We've kept these ships hidden for 20 years. The moment we use them, every species in the galaxy will know we've been holding back. The Valorians are going to find out anyway, Richard said. Better to control how they learn than have it exposed piece by piece. Besides, the diplomatic corps has been arguing for years that we need to show our real military strength. This is our chance. A chance delivered by an empire declaring war on us, Linda pointed out. The universe has a sense of irony, Richard said, dryly. He opened a priority communication channel. Get me Secretary of Defense Morrison and President Walsh. We need executive authorization for Prometheus Protocol. Within minutes, the holographic images of both officials appeared in the command center. President Karen Walsh looked serious but calm. Secretary Morrison was a big man with gray hair. He looked almost eager. Admiral Peters, General Martinez, the president said. I've read Ambassador Cooper's report and your tactical assessment. You're asking for authorization to deploy our entire Black Fleet. You want to reveal capabilities we've spent 20 years hiding. That's a big request. No, ma'am, it's not small, Richard agreed. But the Valorians have given us no choice. They've declared war in public, in front of representatives from 24 species. If we look weak now, every aggressive empire in this sector will see us as easy prey. And if we show our strength? The president asked. Then we establish a new way of doing things, Linda said. We've been the friendly newcomers for 100 years, ma'am. Always negotiating, always compromising, always being underestimated. Maybe it's time we show the galaxy what humans can really do when pushed. Secretary Morrison nodded. The military has been asking for this for years. We have weapon systems, ship designs, and strategic capabilities that make the Valorian fleet look old and weak. We've been holding back to avoid starting an arms race. But if someone else starts the fight... President Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Her face showed deep thought. This will change everything. Our relationships with every species we've met, our position in galactic politics, the way humanity is seen across known space. Yes, ma'am, Richard said, but the alternative is letting the Valorians destroy our colonies while we hide our strength. That will also change everything, just in a much worse direction. The president's jaw set with determination. Admiral Peters, you have authorization to implement Prometheus Protocol. Show the Valorians exactly what happens when someone declares war on humanity. But Richard, try to leave some of them alive for the peace negotiations. Understood, ma'am. Richard allowed himself a small smile. We'll be proportional in our response. Proportionally overwhelming, Linda said quietly. After the transmission ended, Richard turned to the main tactical display. Alert all fleet commanders. Execute Prometheus Protocol. And someone send a message to Ambassador Cooper. What should it say, sir? Peter asked. Tell him he can have his dessert in peace, Richard said. We'll handle the war. Across human space, the message went out. Ships that had been hidden in secret bases for decades powered up their engines. Weapon systems that had never been tested in real combat came online. Crews who had trained for years in simulation finally prepared for the real thing. The Valorians thought they knew what humans were capable of. They thought 10,000 warships would be enough to crush the peaceful species that preferred talking to fighting. They were about to learn how wrong they were. They were about to discover that humans didn't build a small military because they were weak. They built a small visible military because they were smart. The real military, the one they kept hidden, was something else entirely. In 36 hours, the Valorian Empire would learn the most important lesson in galactic politics. Never declare war on a species just because they're polite. Sometimes the most dangerous creatures are the ones who smile while they sharpen their teeth. The Valorian Armada came out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 10,000 warships arranged in battle groups that had conquered star systems for 300 years. They appeared in the space around Colony 12 like a swarm of angry insects, their weapons already charging, their shields already up. High Commander Zrethkal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory. He watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. The humans would see his fleet and surrender immediately. If they didn't, well, the destruction would be quick. Scan for human defensive positions, he ordered. His sensor officer, a young Valorian named Kresh, worked the controls with fast movements. Then he stopped. His eye stalks twisted in confusion. Sir, I'm getting readings that don't make sense. Report, Zrethkal demanded. I'm only showing 73 human vessels in the system, sir. Long-range scans say they're merchant ships and light patrol craft. No major warships, no defensive stations, no weapon platforms. Kresh paused, his voice uncertain. Sir, they're not even in defensive formation. They're just orbiting the colony, like nothing is wrong. Zrethkal felt something cold run down his spine. This was wrong. The humans had 36 hours of warning. They should have evacuated the colony, or built defenses, or at least arranged their ships for battle. Instead, they looked like they were doing normal business, like a massive invasion fleet hadn't just appeared at their doorstep. It's a trap, his tactical officer Vren said with certainty. They're trying to make us come closer. Trap or not, we have our orders, Zrethkal said. But doubt ate at him. He kept thinking about Ambassador Cooper's calm face, about that knowing smile, about the way he had asked about dessert, like war meant nothing. Prepare to... Every alarm on the Eternal Glory's bridge screamed at once. Red lights flashed. Warning signals blared. The crew jumped into action, but their movements showed panic. Hyperspace ruptures, Kresh shouted over the noise. Multiple contacts emerging, directly behind our fleet. The tactical display lit up like a Christmas tree. Hundreds of new signatures appeared. Ships materialized from hyperspace in perfect coordination, forming a sphere around the Valorian Armada. The humans had surrounded them completely. But these weren't like any human ships the Valorians had seen before. They were bigger, sleeker, more advanced looking, and their energy signatures made the Eternal Glory's reactor look like a toy. Analysis, Zrethkal demanded. His voice was tight with fear he tried to hide. Kresh's hands shook as he worked his console. Sir, I count 467 human warships. Classifications unknown. Energy output is... He stopped. He checked his readings again. Sir, this can't be right. Each of those ships is generating power equal to 5 of our largest dreadnoughts. Their weapon systems are charging. Their shield harmonics are different from anything in our database. We've never seen technology like this. The bridge went quiet, except for the alarm sounds. Everyone stared at the tactical display, showing the human fleet, showing how they were trapped. A transmission came through the bridge speakers. A human voice, female, calm and professional, like she was ordering coffee instead of surrounding an invasion fleet. Valorian Fleet, this is Admiral Linda Martinez of the Human Colonial Defense Force. You have entered human sovereign space with hostile intent. You have one opportunity to stand down. Power down your weapons, drop your shields, prepare to receive boarding parties for formal surrender. You have 60 seconds to comply. Zrethkal's scales flushed with rage. We outnumber them more than 20 to 1. Sir, Vren said quietly. His voice trembled. Their targeting locks are active. Every one of our ships has multiple human vessels assigned to it. And their weapons. I've never seen power signatures like this. They're bluffing, Zrethkal said, but his voice had no confidence. Open a channel. Let me speak to this admiral. The main view screen changed to show a human woman in a crisp military uniform. Behind her, the bridge of her ship hummed with quiet efficiency. Admiral Martinez looked directly at Zrethkal. Her expression was professionally polite, but somehow more threatening than any battle snarl. Hi, Commander Zrethkal, she said. I'm disappointed. I was hoping you'd choose wisdom over pride. You cannot hope to defeat the Valorian Empire, Zrethkal said. He tried to force strength into his voice. We have conquered civilizations across 45 seconds, Martinez interrupted. She glanced at something off-screen. I should mention that the weapons we're currently targeting you with are what humans call mass drivers. Magnetically accelerated projectiles, traveling at 0.97 light speed. Each of your capital ships will be struck by approximately 40 such projectiles simultaneously. Your shields will last about 3 seconds. Your hull plating will last 2 more. The projectiles will pass completely through your vessels and continue into space. Very clean, very efficient. Zrethkal felt his blood go cold. She was describing total annihilation, the deaths of millions of Valorian soldiers, the destruction of the pride of their empire. And she said it like she was reading a weather report. You're describing a massacre, he whispered. I'm describing the consequence of your choice, Martinez corrected. Her voice stayed calm. You declared war on humanity, High Commander. We didn't ask for this. But if you insist on fighting, we will show you exactly why humanity has spent the last 100 years trying to avoid military conflicts. Not because we're weak, but because we're too good at them. We're good at war in ways that would frighten you if you truly understood. 30 seconds. Vren leaned close to Zrethkal. Sir, their weapons are fully charged. Our tactical computer gives us a 0.3% chance of survival if they fire. That's not even a 1% chance. We would all die. How is this possible? Zrethkal asked. His voice came out as a whisper. Our intelligence said humans were peaceful, focused on diplomacy, militarily inferior to most species. Your intelligence was wrong, Martinez said. She had clearly heard him despite the whisper. We are peaceful. We do prefer diplomacy. But we've been building these ships in secret for 20 years because we learned a hard lesson, High Commander. Peace is only possible when you're strong enough that nobody wants to fight you. The galaxy is full of predators. We chose to become the biggest predator while pretending to be prey. 15 seconds. Zrethkal looked around his bridge. His crew stared at him. Fear filled their eyes. 10,000 ships, the pride of the Valorian Empire. The fleet that had crushed 18 civilizations. All of it caught in a trap of their own making. All because they assumed the friendly humans were weak. All because they hadn't bothered to look deeper. Stand down, he said quietly. Then, louder, so every ship could hear. All ships stand down. Power down weapons, drop shields, surrender. The tension on the bridge didn't ease. If anything, it got worse as their defenses flickered and died. They were completely vulnerable now. If the humans wanted to fire, nothing would stop them. Martinez nodded. A wise choice, High Commander. You and your captains will be transported to my flagship for formal surrender and negotiation of terms. Your crews will remain on their ships under guard. No one will be harmed, as long as everyone cooperates. Do you understand? I understand, Zrethkal said. His voice sounded hollow and defeated. Good. Stand by for transport. Martinez's image disappeared from the screen. The bridge stayed quiet. Zrethkal slumped in his command chair. His forearms hung limp at his sides. Around him, his officers worked in shocked silence. They were processing what just happened. The total reversal of their fortunes. The complete destruction of their assumptions about humanity. Sir, Kresh said quietly after several minutes. There's an incoming transmission from the human diplomatic vessel. It's Ambassador Cooper. Put him through, Zrethkal said tiredly. He didn't have the energy to refuse. Daniel Cooper's face appeared on a smaller screen. The human was eating something from a small plate. It looked like crystal cake, the same dessert from the dinner last night. He smiled at Zrethkal like they were old friends meeting for lunch. High Commander, Daniel said cheerfully. Just wanted to check in. How's the whole war declaration working out for you? Zrethkal stared at the human ambassador, at the man who was eating cake while watching 10,000 warships surrender. You knew, the entire time at dinner, you knew this would happen. I had a pretty good idea, Daniel admitted. He took another bite of cake. The dessert was excellent, by the way. Thanks for sending the leftovers to my ship. I'm having some now while I watch the surrender. Very appropriate timing, don't you think? Before or after dessert, Zrethkal said slowly. Understanding finally came to him. You were giving us a choice, a warning hidden in a question. I really was asking about the cake, but also, yes, you could have enjoyed dessert. We could have talked through your concerns about those star systems, like civilized beings. None of this would have been necessary. Instead, you chose war. So we gave you war. Just not the war you expected. Zrethkal's scales faded to pale gray, the color of defeat. What happens to me now? Negotiations, Daniel said. You'll work with Admiral Martinez to create a peace treaty. You'll return the systems you stole from other species. You'll make amends for the civilizations you destroyed. And if you're very cooperative and very lucky, the Valorian Empire will survive this with most of its territory intact. He paused to take another bite. Oh, and you'll attend a formal dinner on Earth in about 3 months. State occasion. Very fancy. Better desserts than you can imagine. Despite everything, Zrethkal found himself asking, what kind of desserts? The kind worth waiting for, High Commander. The kind worth choosing peace for. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have cake to finish and a very long report to write. Your empire started and ended a war in the same day. That has to be some kind of record. The transmission ended. Zrethkal sat alone with his thoughts and the ruins of his empire's pride. 3 weeks after the surrender, negotiations began aboard the human flagship Washington. The conference room was large and clean, with big windows showing the stars outside. Zrethkal sat on one side of the long table with his remaining advisors. On the other side sat Admiral Martinez, Ambassador Cooper, and several human diplomatic officers. Between them lay stacks of documents, datapads, and holographic displays showing maps of contested territory. The air felt heavy with tension. Let me make sure I understand your terms, Zrethkal said. His voice was carefully controlled. You want us to return all 7 star systems to the species we took them from. You want us to pay reparations to 17 different civilizations. You want us to reduce our military fleet by 60%. And you want us to sign a non-aggression treaty with every species in this sector. That's correct, Admiral Martinez said. She sat with perfect posture, her hands folded on the table. Those are the minimum terms for peace. And if we refuse? Martinez's expression didn't change. Then we destroy your remaining fleet, blockade your homeworld, and enforce these terms anyway. The only difference is that you'll have no say in the details. Oh, and you'll also face war crimes tribunals for the civilizations you've exterminated. Zrethkal's scales flushed purple with frustration. You're asking us to give up everything we've built over 3 centuries. No, Daniel said. He leaned forward with his elbows on the table. We're asking you to give back what you stole. There's a difference. The Valorian Empire will still exist. You'll still control your original territory. You'll still have a strong enough military to defend yourselves. You just won't be able to invade and conquer anyone else anymore. And what about the humiliation? Vren, Zrethkal's tactical officer, spoke up. Our people will see this as defeat, as shame. They won't accept it. Then you'll need to help them accept it, Martinez said. Because the alternative is extinction. We have the military power to erase the Valorian Empire from existence. We're choosing not to, because we believe in giving second chances. But that choice has conditions. Zrethkal looked at the documents again. These reparations, the amounts are enormous. It will take us 50 years to pay them all. Yes, Daniel agreed. About the same amount of time it will take those civilizations to recover from what you did to them. Seems fair to me. And this clause about observers, Crash the censor officer pointed to a section in the treaty. You want to station human personnel on our ships? In our government buildings? That's occupation. That's verification, Martinez corrected. We need to make sure you're actually following the treaty. The observers will have limited authority. They can't give you orders or interfere with your internal politics. They can only report violations. Think of them as neutral monitors. Neutral monitors from the species that defeated us, Vren said bitterly. Would you prefer monitors from one of the species you conquered? Daniel asked. Because we can arrange that. I'm sure the Krell would love to send observers to Valorian ships. Or the Torvan. Or any of the other 17 civilizations you crushed. We thought you'd prefer human observers, but if you want someone else... Zrethkal held up one hand to stop him. No, human observers are acceptable. He knew that having observers from species they'd victimized would be much worse. At least humans were relatively neutral. They spent the next 6 hours going through the treaty line by line. The humans were willing to negotiate on some details, but firm on the core requirements. The Valorians would return stolen territory. They would pay reparations. They would reduce their military. They would accept oversight. There was no way around these demands. During a break, Zrethkal found himself alone with Daniel in a side room. The ambassador was preparing coffee from a machine in the corner. Want some? Daniel offered. It's from Earth. Kenyan blend. Very good. I don't drink stimulants, Zrethkal said. Suit yourself. Daniel poured a cup and took a sip. You're handling this better than I expected. Some commanders in your position would still be making threats. Threats are meaningless when the other side has overwhelming force, Zrethkal said. I learned that lesson thoroughly 3 weeks ago. Good. Daniel sat down in one of the chairs. Let me be honest with you, Commander. These terms seem harsh to you right now, but in 10 years, you'll look back and realize we gave you a gift. A gift? Zrethkal's scales flushed with disbelief. You're dismantling my empire. We're stopping you from destroying yourselves, Daniel corrected. The path your empire was on led to one place. Eventually, you would have picked a fight with someone who could actually fight back. Maybe not humans, but someone. And that fight would have ended with your entire civilization extinct. We're giving you a chance to survive, to change, to become something better than conquerors. You sound very certain. I am certain, Daniel said, because humanity went through the same thing. Back on Earth, centuries ago, We had empires that conquered and killed and thought might made right. They all fell eventually. They all destroyed themselves. The only reason humanity survived is because we learned to change. We learned that cooperation works better than domination in the long run. Zrethkal sat down across from him. Your species hasn't always been peaceful. God no, Daniel laughed. We've fought some terrible wars. We've done awful things to each other. That's why we're so good at military technology. We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. But we also learned from our mistakes. We learned that peace and diplomacy and cooperation lead to better outcomes than endless war. And now you want to teach us this lesson. We want to give you the chance to learn it, Daniel said. Whether you actually learn it is up to you. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Zrethkal asked, Why didn't you just destroy us? You had the power. Why show mercy? Daniel's expression became serious. Because mercy is what separates civilization from barbarism. You declared war on us. You threatened to burn our colonies. You could have killed millions of humans. But when we had you defeated, we chose peace instead of revenge. That's the kind of species we are. That's the kind of species we hope you can become. If we break the treaty, then we'll stop you again, Daniel said simply. But we'll keep giving you chances to do better. That's what civilization means, Commander. We don't give up on each other easily. They returned to the conference room. The negotiations continued through the day and into the night. The Valorians tried to soften some terms. The humans made small compromises on details, but held firm on the important parts. Finally, as artificial dawn lit the windows, Zrethkal looked at his advisors. They nodded tiredly. It was the best deal they would get. We accept your terms, Zrethkal said. The Valorian Empire will sign this treaty. Admiral Martinez allowed herself a small smile. A wise decision. We'll hold the formal signing ceremony in 1 week. That gives both sides time to review the final document and brief their governments. 1 week, Zrethkal agreed. As the Valorians left the conference room, Vren walked beside his commander. Are we doing the right thing? He asked quietly. We're doing the only thing, Zrethkal replied. But maybe Cooper was right. Maybe this is a gift we're too angry to recognize yet. You believe that? Zrethkal looked at the human ships visible through the windows. Ships more advanced than anything the Valorians had ever built. Ships that could have destroyed them, but chose mercy instead. I'm starting to, he said. 1 week later, the formal signing took place aboard a neutral space station. Representatives from 40 different species attended to witness the moment. Zrethkal signed the treaty with all 4 hands, making it official under Valorian law. When it was done, when the Valorian Empire had officially surrendered and agreed to change, Daniel approached him with a small box. What's this? Zrethkal asked. Your invitation to Earth, Daniel said. 3 months from now, formal state dinner. I promised you good desserts, remember? Zrethkal took the box. Inside was an ornate invitation, written in both English and Valorian. You still want me to come? After everything? Of course, Daniel said. How else will you learn about human culture? How else will we start building a real friendship between our species? Besides, you need to try Earth chocolate. If crystal cake impressed you, chocolate is going to blow your mind. Despite everything, despite the defeat and humiliation and change forced upon his empire, Zrethkal found himself curious. Chocolate? Trust me, Daniel said with that same worn smile from their first meeting. It's worth the trip. As Zrethkal left the signing ceremony, he carried the invitation carefully. Maybe Daniel was right. Maybe in 10 years he would look back on this moment and see it differently. Maybe defeat was really opportunity in disguise. Or maybe humans were just very good at making their enemies believe that. Either way, Zrethkal was curious about this chocolate thing, and after 3 weeks of negotiations, he had learned that when humans promised good food, they delivered. That, at least, was something he could trust. 6 months after the treaty signing, Ambassador Daniel Cooper stood before the Galactic Assembly. The huge circular chamber floated in neutral space, a building created by 43 different species working together. It was the closest thing to galactic government that existed. Today's session would change everything. Representatives from every species sat in their assigned areas. Some had special environments for their biology. Some needed water tanks, some needed different air, some were just clouds of gas in containers. The assembly had spent 2 centuries building this place where everyone could meet as equals. But today, the equality was about to shift. High Commander Zrethkal, who now held the title of Valorian Ambassador, stood at a podium across from Daniel. Between them, a holographic display showed the new treaty that would change this sector of space forever. Zrethkal looked different now. His scales were lighter, healthier. His posture showed less arrogance and more dignity. The Valorian Empire, Zrethkal said into the translator, formally recognizes the sovereignty of the 17 species we previously conquered. We return their territories. We pay reparations as outlined in the treaty. We pledge to follow the laws of this assembly and accept its authority over disputes. Whispers ran through the chamber. The Valorian Empire had been a threat for 300 years. They had crushed civilizations and laughed at the assembly's attempts to stop them. Now they were surrendering that power. It seemed impossible. But the real surprise came when Daniel stepped forward. Humanity, he said clearly, wishes to make a formal announcement to this assembly. For the past 100 years, we have followed a policy of diplomatic engagement while hiding our true military capabilities. We did this to avoid triggering an arms race. We wanted to give other species the chance to interact with us without feeling threatened. He paused to let that sink in. However, recent events have shown that our policy of hiding our strength may have encouraged aggression. Species assumed our preference for peace meant we were weak. Therefore, humanity is now formally revealing our full military capabilities to this assembly. A new holographic display appeared, showing ship classifications, weapon systems, and military bases. The chamber erupted into shocked conversation. Several species started recording frantically, trying to document everything they were seeing. The numbers were staggering. The technology was advanced beyond what most species thought possible. The Zephyrite ambassador, a floating cloud named Whisper of Dawn, drifted forward. Ambassador Cooper, these capabilities are extraordinary. Your smallest destroyer has firepower equal to most species' largest dreadnoughts. Why did you hide this? Because we didn't want to need them, Daniel answered honestly. Humans learned hard lessons in our own history. Arms races spiral into wars that destroy civilizations. We came to the stars hoping to find a different path. We built our military in secret as insurance, but we genuinely hoped we'd never need to reveal it. And now? Asked the Krell ambassador. He was a crystalline being whose voice sounded like wind chimes. Now we're creating a new system, Daniel said. Humanity offers our military capabilities in defense of this assembly and its member species. Any aggressor who attacks a member species will face a human response. We're not seeking to dominate or rule. We're offering to be the peacekeepers this galaxy has always needed but never had. A galactic police force? The Torvan ambassador, a reptilian creature named Sasthar, sounded skeptical. What stops you from using this power to build your own empire? Accountability, Daniel replied. We're proposing the creation of an Assembly Security Council with representatives from 10 species, including humanity. All military actions would require majority approval from the Council. All human military vessels operating in assembly space would carry observers from other species. complete transparency in everything we do. General Linda Martinez appeared through holographic projection, standing beside Daniel. We're also offering to share certain defensive technologies with any species that joins the Mutual Defense Pact. Not weapons, but defensive systems, shield technology, point defense networks, early warning systems, enough to make sure no single aggressor can threaten peaceful civilizations the way the Valorians did. The chamber fell into heavy silence. Every species was processing this unprecedented offer. It was more than anyone expected. President Karen Walsh's hologram joined the others. Let me be very clear about humanity's intentions. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We've seen in our own history where that leads. Nothing good comes from empire building. But we also won't stand by while aggressive empires crush peaceful civilizations. We're strong enough to enforce peace, and we're principled enough to do it fairly. We're offering a choice. Join us in building a true galactic community, or remain outside it and face the consequences of aggression alone. Zrethkal stepped forward, without being asked. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. I speak as one who learned the price of underestimating humanity. I believed them weak because they preferred talking to fighting. I declared war, and nearly destroyed my entire civilization as a result. His scales flushed with visible shame. The humans could have destroyed our fleet completely. Instead, they disabled our weapons and forced us to face our crimes. They offered us a path to redemption. I have spent 6 months working with their diplomats. I tell you this with certainty. They are sincere in their offer. They truly do not seek domination. They seek to protect. I have seen this with my own eyes. The Zephyrite ambassador drifted closer to Daniel. A species that builds such weapons in secret, that can destroy fleets in minutes, now asks us to trust them with galactic peace. Why should we believe you won't become what you claim to oppose? Daniel nodded, showing he understood the question's importance. Because you'll be watching us every step of the way. We're volunteering for oversight and accountability. We're proving our intentions right now. We could have made this offer from a position of threat, using our military to force compliance. Instead, we're asking for your cooperation. We're offering partnership, not conquest. Admiral Richard Peters appeared as another hologram. I'll add one more thing. Humanity has a saying, trust, but verify. We're not asking for blind faith. We're proposing a 5-year trial period. If at any point the Assembly votes with a 75% majority that humanity is abusing our position, we'll step down from the Security Council. We'll withdraw our forces to our own territory. We're that confident in our intentions. The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Species formed groups to discuss. They argued through translators. They analyzed the data humanity had provided. Daniel stood patiently through it all. He answered questions when asked, but mostly let the assembly process everything. Some species were enthusiastic. They had been waiting for someone to stop aggressive empires like the Valorians. Some were cautious, worried about giving too much power to one species. Some were outright suspicious, certain this was a trick to establish human dominance. But slowly, consensus built. The evidence was clear. Humanity had defeated the Valorians, but shown mercy. They had hidden their strength for a century, rather than using it to conquer. They were offering transparency and accountability. If they wanted to rule the galaxy, they would have done it already. Finally, Whisper of Dawn called for a vote. 37 species voted in favor of the Mutual Defense Pact and Security Council. 4 voted against. 2 abstained. The motion passes, Whisper of Dawn announced. Her voice chimed through the chamber. Humanity is hereby recognized as the primary peacekeeping force for the Galactic Assembly. The Security Council will convene within one standard cycle to establish protocols and oversight mechanisms. As the session ended, species began approaching Daniel. Some wanted to thank him, some wanted to discuss details. Some just wanted to shake his hand. an Earth custom they had learned about. Daniel accepted all of it with grace and patience. Zrethkal approached him privately after most others had left. "You were right about the desserts," the Valorian said quietly. Daniel smiled. "Earth food? The state dinner last month. Those small chocolate structures with the liquid centers, they were incredible." Zrethkal's scales shifted to a calm blue color. "I understand now what you were trying to teach me during our first dinner. Patience, appreciation for the moment, the understanding that rushing to war means missing the better things in life." "Lava cakes," Daniel said. "That's what those were called. And yes, that was part of the lesson. But also, I genuinely wanted to finish my meal. Life's too short to miss good food because of politics." "Your species is very strange," Zrethkal said, but his tone was respectful now. "You build weapons capable of destroying stars, but you care more about dessert than displays of power." "That's because we understand what really matters," Daniel replied. "Power is just a tool. Peace is a choice we make every day. Dessert is a celebration of what civilization can be. We prefer to celebrate rather than dominate." They walked together from the chamber. Through the windows, space glittered with ships from dozens of species. Human vessels, Valorian ships, and craft from many others, all working together for the first time in galactic history. Daniel pulled up his personal communicator. A message from his wife Amy appeared. They had gotten married 2 months ago in a small ceremony on Earth. "Dinner reservation confirmed for tonight," the message read. "They're making that butterscotch thing you liked from the Valorian homeworld." Daniel smiled and typed back. "Before or after we save the galaxy." Multitasking is a human specialty. Zrethkal noticed Daniel's happy expression. "Good news?" "Dinner plans," Daniel said. "Want to join us? We're celebrating the treaty's approval." "Another celebration?" Zrethkal's eye stalks showed amusement. "Don't humans ever stop celebrating?" "Not when there are things worth celebrating," Daniel said. "Peace, treaties, new friendships, good food. These are what civilizations are built on. War is temporary and destructive. Dessert is eternal and brings people together." "Dessert is eternal," Zrethkal repeated thoughtfully. "Is that a human proverb?" "It is now," Daniel said with a grin. "Come on, I'll teach you about Italian food. We're having something called tiramisu tonight. It'll change your perspective on life." As they left the assembly building, Daniel thought about how far everything had come. 6 months ago, the Valorians had declared war on humanity. They expected an easy victory over a weak species. Instead, they got a lesson in humility and the beginning of a new galactic order. The galaxy was entering a new era, not one founded on the threat of force, but on the promise of protection. An era where humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ships or their technology. It was their understanding that true strength meant knowing when not to fight. And it all started because one ambassador refused to let a war declaration interrupt his dessert. In the human embassy restaurant that evening, Daniel raised his glass of wine in a toast. Around the table sat Amy, Zrethkal, Admiral Martinez through holographic link, and representatives from a dozen different species. New friends made through crisis and resolution. "To peace," Daniel said, "to partnership, and to dessert. May we always have time for it." "To dessert," the others echoed. Even Zrethkal joined in, his translator making the words sound almost joyful. Because in the end, that was the real lesson humanity taught the galaxy. The mark of truly advanced civilization wasn't measured in weapons or conquered territories. It was measured in the ability to sit down together, share a meal, and remember that the universe was big enough for everyone to have their place at the table. Even if that table needed to be very large and include enough chairs for dozens of different body types and enough space for everyone's dessert. The great hall of the Valorian Empire shined with bright lights. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, throwing colors across the room like rainbows. Ambassador Daniel Cooper sat at the long table with his knife and fork in hand. He was eating something purple that the Valorians said was their best food. It tasted like butterscotch pudding to him, and he liked it. Around the table sat representatives from 20 different alien species. Some had scales, some had fur, some were just floating clouds in special suits. They all came here for the big diplomatic dinner that happened once every year. Daniel had been looking forward to this meal for weeks. Across from Daniel, High Commander Zrethkal stood up fast, his 4 arms spread wide. The Valorian was tall, maybe 8 feet, with blue scales that shined under the lights. His eye stalks moved around to look at everyone in the room. Every alien stopped talking and turned to look at him. Zrethkal's voice came through the translator device that hung in the air. "Humanity," he said loud and clear, "the Valorian Empire declares total war against your species. You have taken 7 star systems that belong to us. You ignored our warnings. You refused our demands. Get ready to be destroyed." The silence was heavy. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They all waited to see what the human would do. Daniel swallowed his food. He picked up his napkin and wiped his mouth clean. Then he looked up at Zrethkal with honest curiosity on his face. "Before or after dessert?" he asked. "Because I really want to try that crystal cake thing your chef told me about." The silence got even heavier. Nobody expected that response. Zrethkal's eye stalks twisted around in confusion. "Did you not hear me, human? I just declared war on all of your people." "Oh, I heard you fine," Daniel said. He cut another piece of the purple food and put it in his mouth. He chewed and swallowed before continuing. "I just need to know about the timing. If the war starts after dessert, I can finish eating. If it starts before dessert, well, that seems kind of rude. Your food has been really good so far." The other diplomats started whispering to each other. Some looked shocked, some looked confused, some looked scared. The Valorians were famous across the galaxy for their military power. They had crushed 18 different civilizations in the past 300 years. When they declared war, species usually surrendered right away or begged for mercy. Nobody had ever asked about dessert before. "You mock us?" Zrethkal's voice shook with anger. "Not at all," Daniel said in a friendly tone. "I'm serious about the dessert. Is it ready now, or do we have to wait? Because if we're going to war, I should probably call my boss." "That will take at least 15 minutes because of the communication delay." "That's enough time for cake, right?" Zrethkal turned to his advisors. They spoke quickly in their own language, without using the translators. They looked just as confused as their commander. One of them, a smaller Valorian with green scales, leaned close and whispered something urgent. "Maybe you don't understand how serious this is," Zrethkal said slowly. "We will send 10,000 warships. We will burn your colonies to ash. We will—" Yes, very scary," Daniel interrupted. He looked at his watch. "Look, I don't mean to be rude, but can someone get the chef out here? I really need to know about this dessert situation. Also, do you have coffee? I'm going to need coffee for all the paperwork." A small alien from the Zephrite delegation floated closer to her friend. She was just a cloud of gas in a clear suit. "Should someone check if humans stop working right when they get stressed?" Daniel called out with a smile. He raised his hand like a student in school. "Not broken, just being practical. Hey, Zrethkal, since we're doing this war thing, can I at least finish my food? It would be wrong to waste good cooking. My mother taught me never to waste food." The High Commander's scales turned deep purple. Daniel had learned that this color meant the Valorians were very frustrated. "You are either the bravest human I have ever met, or the most stupid." "Probably both," Daniel agreed with a shrug. "But I still want to know. Dessert before the war, or dessert after the war?" Zrethkal stared at the human. His 4 arms hung at his sides. His eye stalks drooped. He didn't know what to do with this strange creature who cared more about cake than military threats. "We will discuss this," Zrethkal finally said. "The war begins tomorrow at dawn our time. That gives you time for your dessert and your communications." "Perfect," Daniel said brightly. "So dessert now, war later. That works for me." The chef came out with the crystal cake. It was a beautiful thing that seemed to glow with its own light. Daniel took a piece and tasted it. His eyes closed with happiness. "Oh, that's good," he said. "That's really good. You know, Zrethkal, even if we're at war tomorrow, you guys make excellent desserts. I have to give you credit for that." Zrethkal sat down heavily in his chair. He looked tired and confused. Around the table, the other diplomats slowly started eating again. But they all watched Daniel with wide eyes. Some took out recording devices to document what was happening. The human just kept eating his cake, completely calm and happy. He even asked for a second piece. The Valorian servers brought it to him, though they looked uncertain about serving dessert to someone their empire had just declared war on. "You know what's funny?" Daniel said between bites. "This whole situation could have been avoided. Those 7 star systems you mentioned, we bought the rights to settle there from the original inhabitants. We have all the legal documents. We tried to show them to you 3 times, but your people said you weren't interested in talking." "We do not negotiate with inferior species," Zrethkal said coldly. "And that's why we're having this problem," Daniel replied. He finished his second piece of cake and leaned back in his chair. "See, if you had just looked at our paperwork, we could have cleared this up months ago. But you wanted to do things the hard way. That's fine. We can do things the hard way. I just think it's a waste when there's such good cake involved." Zrethkal's scales faded to a lighter purple. "You speak as if you are not worried about the war." "I'm not," Daniel said honestly. "Should I be?" "We have 10,000 ships," Zrethkal said. "What do you have?" Daniel smiled. It was a small smile, not mean or cruel, just knowing. "I guess you'll find out tomorrow. But let me give you some free advice, Commander. When someone asks about dessert instead of panicking about your war declaration, maybe that should tell you something. Maybe you should wonder why they're so calm. Maybe you should think about what they know that you don't." Zrethkal went very still. His eye stalks focused entirely on Daniel. "What do you know?" "Enough," Daniel said. He stood up from his chair. "Thank you for the dinner. The food was excellent. I'll take some of that cake with me if you don't mind. And I'll see you tomorrow after your fleet arrives at Colony 12. We can discuss surrender terms then." "Our surrender terms?" Zrethkal said. "You mean your surrender terms?" "Sure," Daniel said easily. "We'll see whose terms matter tomorrow. Good night, Commander. Sleep well." Daniel walked out of the great hall with a small box of leftover crystal cake. Behind him, the hall erupted into shocked conversation. 20 species all talking at once about what they just saw. About the human who treated a war declaration like a minor inconvenience. About the ambassador who cared more about dessert than death threats. Zrethkal sat at his table for a long time after everyone left. His advisors waited nearby, but he didn't speak to them. He just kept thinking about that smile on the human's face, that calm, knowing smile. Maybe he had made a mistake. Maybe humans were not what they seemed. Maybe declaring war without knowing more about them had been foolish. But it was too late now. The declaration had been made in front of 20 species. The fleet would launch at dawn. They would attack Colony 12. And then they would see what humans were really made of. He just hoped that whatever they found wouldn't prove the human ambassador right.